After a fight with her fiancé, Michelle packs her things and leaves, placing her engagement ring and the apartment keys on the table. She drives for a long time through the countryside, stopping at a gas station where she notices a car that has been following her for some time. Late at night, her fiancé calls, trying to convince Michelle to return, but she doesn't want to talk and turns on the radio. She hears a news report about widespread power outages. Distracted, she gets into an accident. The car flips over several times, crashing onto the roadside, and Michelle loses consciousness. Sometime later, she wakes up in a concrete room. An IV is connected to her arm, and her leg is bandaged and restrained with metal chains. Her belongings are piled in the corner of the room. Using the IV stand, Michelle reaches her phone, but there's no signal. Then she hears footsteps, and the door opens, revealing a large man who places a tray of food in front of her. She begs him to let her go, promising she won't tell anyone, but the man tells her that he's not letting her die, and after leaving the key to her shackles, he walks out. Michelle frees herself, gets dressed, and sharpens the end of a crutch, preparing to fight for her freedom, but the man is gone, so she sets a piece of clothing on fire and pushes it into the ventilation duct. The fire alarm goes off, and when the man runs in, he injects her with something, causing her to pass out. When she regains consciousness, Michelle sees the man sitting by her bed. He tells her that she's actually very lucky to be there. She must eat and take her medication because humans have been attacked, though it's still unclear what kind of attack it is. They are now in a bunker beneath his farm. He saw her crash and couldn't leave her to die. Michelle insists on calling the police, but the man explains that the outside world is contaminated. It will take at least a year for the air to be breathable again, and that's only if it was a simple attack. If it were something like Martians, humanity might be doomed. Michelle asks to contact her family, but the man assures her that everyone left on the surface is dead. As Michelle tries to process what she's heard, there's a loud noise from the next room. The man leaves, leaving the door open, and shouts at someone, then returns and angrily reminds her that she should be grateful to him for saving her life. Before he leaves, he introduces himself as Howard. The next morning, Michelle is awakened by a sound coming from the surface and sees the door open. She walks out and wakes a young man sleeping in the hallway. He tries to reassure her, but she explains that she doesn't believe Howard's lies. However, Emmett confirms that everything is indeed as Howard said. Later, Howard shows Michelle the bunker. In the center is a communal area where a special system filters the air. There's a library, a TV, and movies on disc. The kitchen is impressive, with an electric stove, fridge, and silverware. The table is a family heirloom. Access to Howard's personal room is forbidden. Michelle has to use the toilet behind a curtain because Howard fears she might try something dangerous again, like nearly starting a fire. Also, water needs to be used sparingly. After the tour, Howard invites her to sit at the table for lunch. Michelle notices a stack of women's magazines, and Howard explains that they belong to Megan, who is no longer with them. Suddenly, Michelle hears a noise outside and guesses it might be a car passing by, but Howard assures her that it's impossible. He's tired of explaining that no one is left above, even though people thought he was crazy when he started building the bunker. He offers Michelle a chance to see for herself, leading her to a staircase. At the top, Michelle sees a door with a small window. The outside world looks unchanged at first glance, but in the pen in front of the house lie dead pigs with deep sores. Howard explains that those were his pigs, which he couldn't save. Then Michelle recognizes his car as the one that had been following her the night of the accident. Howard points out that these doors are always locked and shows her the key. Later, Michelle and Emmett discuss the situation. Emmett reveals that Howard had served in the Navy. Afterward, he bought the farm and hired Emmett to help with the chores. Howard is obsessed with conspiracy theories, which is why he built the bunker. Emmett wasn't kidnapped. He ran to Howard's bunker, hoping to take shelter because he saw Howard pouring all his money into its construction. Michelle reminds Emmett that it was Howard who caused the accident and brought her here, so everything he says about an attack is a lie, but Emmett insists she's wrong. He saw the attack himself, a flash, an explosion, and the horizon turned red. He's glad he made it to the bunker before Howard locked the door. Michelle tries to refute Howard's claims, unaware that he's been standing in the doorway, listening to their conversation. Howard invites them to dinner, remarking that the two seem to have gotten along well. During dinner, Emmett talks about his unfulfilled dreams and then notices a Monopoly game, suggesting they pass the time playing it. Howard gets annoyed by the chatter, and Michelle flirts with Emmett, provoking Howard's outburst of anger. He yells at her, demanding respect because he saved her life. While Howard is scolding them, Michelle manages to steal the keys from his belt. Howard notices her strange behavior and realizes the keys are missing, but before he can react, a noise from above distracts him and Michelle hits him over the head with a bottle, running for the bunker exit. Emmett shouts after her to stop, but Michelle reaches the door and slips into the airlock just before Howard can catch up. Michelle sees a car approaching the farm. She screams, trying to get the driver's attention, but a woman suffering from a severe skin infection runs to the window, desperately begging to be let into the bunker. Howard forbids Michelle from helping the woman, saying it's too late to save her. Realizing that some sort of attack has indeed happened, Michelle returns to the bunker. Later, Howard admits that he caused Michelle's accident, but it was this accident that saved her life. Howard lends her some of Megan's clothes and sends her to shower since she was near the door. He reveals that he recognized the infected woman as his former neighbor. Since most people knew about his bunker, others may come here too. Howard demands that Michelle stitch up the wound she caused and starts telling funny stories from his time in the Navy. Michelle begins stitching up Howard's wound as he continues to share stories, praising her for her efforts. Later, he brings a box containing her belongings from the car and asks her about her life. Michelle admits that she had dreamed of becoming a fashion designer. Howard in turn shares that his daughter Megan had wanted to be an artist. He shows Michelle a picture of Megan, a young girl, and laments that after his divorce, Megan's mother turned her against him and took her to Chicago. Howard expresses frustration that people don't care about their safety, but at least he tried to protect them. Later, Emmett comforts Michelle, telling her she couldn't have saved the woman outside even if they had let her in, she would have died anyway. They reminisce about their past lives. Emmett, who had been awarded a scholarship to a polytechnic school, admits he got scared and never left for it. Michelle, meanwhile, reveals how her father used to beat her, leaving her terrified of confrontation throughout her life. Emmett reminds her that, despite everything, they're the lucky ones. They survived. Over the next few days, the three of them begin to coexist somewhat peacefully. They play games, prepare meals together, and make small attempts to adjust to their new lives. One day, a loud noise echoes from above. Howard suggests that, if it's the military, it's not Earth's military. The flashes they saw earlier were just the first phase. Now, the second phase, clearing out the territories, has begun, likely by alien forces. Suddenly, the air filtration system fails. Howard asks Michelle to climb through the ventilation shaft to restart the system, as she's the only one small enough to fit. She agrees and begins crawling through the ducts. Eventually, she reaches the filtration unit and manages to restart it. But while she's there, she spots something disturbing. A message etched into the glass that reads, "Help," along with a bloody earring lying beneath a ladder. The earring looks exactly like the one Megan was wearing in the photo Howard showed her. Shaken, Michelle tells Emmett about her discovery, suspecting that Howard might have done something to Megan. Upon closer inspection, Emmett recognizes the girl in the photo, not as Megan, but as Brittany, a classmate of his sister who went missing years ago. A second photograph falls from the book, showing Howard and Brittany dressed in the same clothes that Michelle now wears, standing together in the bunker. Realizing the danger they're in, Michelle and Emmett decide to plan an escape. They quietly start gathering materials. Michelle cuts a makeshift biohazard suit from a shower curtain, and Emmett constructs a homemade gas mask. Their plan is to take Howard's gun, tie him up, and then one of them will go for help. One evening, while playing a game of charades, they almost give themselves away when Howard starts suspecting that something is off. A few days later, Howard calls them into a room and shows them a barrel of hydrochloric acid, which he claims is for waste disposal. He then accuses them of plotting against him, revealing the tools they had hidden for their escape. Furious, Howard dissolves the tools in the acid as Michelle and Emmett look on, horrified. Trying to protect Michelle, Emmett takes the blame for the attempted escape, admitting that he used the tools to try and make a weapon. Howard, seemingly accepting Emmett's apology, coldly shoots and kills him. Shocked and heartbroken, Michelle watches as Howard calmly reassures her, promising that no one will ever harm her again. He begins taking care of her, offering her ice cream and talking about how they'll create a happy life together in the bunker. Determined to escape, Michelle rushes to finish her biohazard suit while mourning Emmett. But one night, Howard discovers the suit hidden among her belongings. Michelle manages to slip past him, but Howard catches up, scolding her for her ingratitude. In a desperate move, Michelle knocks over the barrel of acid onto Howard, causing a fire to break out in the bunker. She grabs her biohazard suit as a severely injured Howard tries to attack her, but she traps him under a heavy shelf and makes her way to the exit. By now, the bunker is engulfed in flames. With the fire spreading, Michelle crawls through the ventilation shaft, dodging Howard's attempts to stab her through the vent grates. She reaches the air filtration room and quickly dons her biohazard suit. Using a can of nitrogen, she freezes and breaks the lock on the outer door, finally escaping the bunker. Outside, Michelle heads toward a car, but tears her suit in the process. Panicking, she seals the rip with duct tape she finds in the vehicle. Just as she's about to relax, she notices a flock of birds flying freely overhead. Realizing that the air isn't toxic, Michelle removes her gas mask, but before she can celebrate, she spots an alien spaceship hovering in the distance, behaving almost like a living creature. As Michelle watches in horror, the bunker explodes behind her, drawing the attention of the alien ship. She frantically searches for the car keys, but can't find them. She runs to the car of the woman who had tried to get into the bunker earlier, but the car alarm goes off, alerting the alien. Terrified, Michelle hides in a nearby shed, where she finds the corpse of the infected woman. Searching the body, Michelle locates the car keys just as the alien creature begins investigating the shed, trying to force its way through the animal door. Taking advantage of the alien's distraction, Michelle sprints toward Howard's house, but as she reaches it, the alien ship flies overhead, releasing a poisonous gas. Michelle quickly puts on her gas mask and survives the chemical attack. She hides in the car, but the alien begins probing the vehicle, testing its defenses. When it becomes clear that the car is too difficult to breach, the alien ship lifts the vehicle into the air. Inside the car, Michelle finds a bottle of flammable liquid and a lighter. She quickly makes a Molotov cocktail and throws it into the alien ship's mouth-like opening. The resulting explosion destroys the alien, and the car crashes to the ground. Michelle survives the fall, climbs out of the wrecked vehicle, and drives away in the woman's car. While driving, she tunes the radio and hears news reports of humanity's victories over the alien invaders. There are instructions for survivors to evacuate and a call for those with medical training or combat experience to head to Houston. As Michelle stops to listen to the full message, she notices a sign pointing toward Houston. She drives in that direction, determined to help, and as lightning flashes, she glimpses an even larger alien ship looming in the sky. The film may not be a masterpiece, but the team's skillful execution is undeniable. The script draws you in gradually, raising unsettling questions about who can truly be trusted. In the future, a time comes when women are offered a unique opportunity to conceive and give birth to a child using mobile artificial wombs in the form of eggs. Don't say a Bob. Say a baby. You're completely tuned to the odd, near-future scenario. A young woman wakes up in her apartment. Her home AI immediately activates the coffee maker and informs Rachel of the good news about the improvement in her digestive health. It suggests an appropriate outfit for the day and reminds her of her visit to the capsule center. Rachel wakes up her husband, Elvie, to wish him a good morning and say goodbye before heading to work. The AI now advises Elvie on his outfit for the day and informs him that his happiness index has slightly increased. He receives a prepared breakfast and heads to the home greenhouse. Meanwhile, Rachel arrives at work, where today there is a presentation of a new generation of cognitive assistants called our machines, which are soon to become new cognitive supervisors. After the meeting, Rachel is invited by her supervisor, who is concerned about the possibility of her expanding her family, as they intend to offer her a promotion. Additionally, the corporation is willing to provide funding for the services of the Uterus Center, which Rachel appreciates. Following this, Rachel continues her workday when she receives a call from the Uterus. There have been changes in their lists, and a spot has opened up which the center can offer her. They schedule a visit, and Rachel settles into a relaxing chair, dreaming about her future child. During this time, her husband conducts a class in the botanical garden, where he shows students a fig fruit that he managed to grow naturally. He offers the young people a taste, but they view the fruit with disgust. Finally, one brave soul tries it. Meanwhile, Rachel shares the joyful news with her colleague and friend Alice and confesses that she hasn't told her husband about her visit to the center. Because of this, she has to consult her robot psychoanalyst, to whom she admits that her husband is very distant from her, as he is fixated on the natural world, which translates into his desire to have a child conceived, carried, and born naturally. The AI seeks an answer to the question of why this child would be considered natural, while one gestated in a capsule would not. What distinguishes them? And Rachel is at a loss, unable to find the differences. Later, she and her friend go out for lunch, and while inhaling the pleasant aromas, Rachel agrees that she should talk to her husband about everything. She finds her husband watching a relaxing program, and he talks about his day. Elvie is disheartened by the fact that the younger generation doesn't know how to interact with nature because no one taught them. At some point, people decided that nature was just a commodity, and that's when everything began to fall apart. The next day, Rachel goes to the Uterus Center, where she and others discuss how, when the birth rate dropped to 0, their newly established center took on the task of solving the problem. Women didn't want to have children because it was inconvenient for them. The center wants them to live full lives and pursue their dreams without being distracted by children. The director of the center, Linda, welcomes the gathering and is ready to share the latest technological advancements. Humans have always managed to control nature, so why shouldn't women take control of childbirth? Linda gives a tour of the center, showing the capsule developed by scientists in which the baby grows. If parents don't have time to interact, they can always play music, audiobooks, or educational podcasts for the baby. Through an app, they can feed the child and monitor its development. One significant advantage is that children in the capsule are not exposed to viruses or toxins. The capsules operate autonomously for 48 hours. The fetus inside can hear everything happening around, so it's advisable for the mother to talk to the baby. After the discussion, Linda reminds Rachel of the need to make a deposit, but Rachel intends to talk to her husband first. Upon returning home, she confesses her intention to Elvie to have a child with the help of the uterus center, which upsets him. Not only did she make such an important decision on her own, but she also went to the center without him. Rachel apologizes, and the couple reconciles. Rachel suggests to Elvie that they talk to Alice and her husband, and the family goes to visit them. Alice enthusiastically discusses the opportunity for women to have a child without experiencing pain, suffering, or body changes. Meanwhile, her husband demonstrates a special belt for carrying the egg capsule, to which Elvie looks quite skeptical. He categorically refuses to hold the capsule. At home, he can't shake the feeling that the egg is made of plastic. Rachel assures him that the child will perceive it as a real maternal womb, but Elvie remains unwavering. It's hard for him to accept that the child will be packaged in plastic. The wife suggests that he visit her robot psychotherapist. Although he initially takes offense at this advice, he eventually decides to go. However, after listening to the AI's advice, the man realizes that they completely misunderstand each other. Upon returning home and discussing the evolution that led humanity to grow children in capsules, he agrees to his wife's proposal because he understands how important it is to her. The next day they go to the center, and although now a child can be made from any material, Rachel announces that Elvie will be the biological father. She allows nature to determine the child's gender. Linda leads them to a room where on a large screen, future parents can witness the moment of conception. Later, they are brought a container with a fertilized zygote so they can admire it. The couple later informs Rachel's parents about the upcoming event. Rachel's father suggests that Elvie sell his countryside house since they never go there, but the man vehemently opposes the idea. While the capsule remains at the center, the future parents continue their usual lives. The day comes when the program connects Rachel to the capsule, and even though nothing can be heard from inside yet, she starts selecting music for the baby. At one point, she tries to see the baby, but she is told that it is kept in complete darkness until 7 weeks. Then one of the capsules sends a signal. It's time for birth. Even though everything is programmed, the baby doesn't always arrive at the appointed time. Soon Rachel starts having strange dreams, which she confides to her psychoanalyst, but the AI convinces her that dreams are unreliable material for analysis. After 6 weeks of pregnancy, when the baby's heartbeat is detectable, Linda allows them to take the capsule home. For the first time, she shows them the baby. On that day, Rachel prepares the kids' room, and Elvie brings an olive tree sapling. However, his wife suggests replacing it with a hologram, and the offended husband takes the tree away, promising to plant it in their countryside house, which Rachel once again suggests selling. She just doesn't understand why they should go somewhere when they have everything for a good life here, but Elvie refuses to raise the child among plastic. The next day, Rachel meets a pregnant woman in the pool who allows her to listen to her baby's movements, filling her with delight. In the evening, she moves the capsule to their bedroom because they want to spend as much time as possible with the future child. However, Elvie feels uncomfortable with intimacy while the baby is present, so they move the capsule to baby's room. It immediately signals hunger, and the parents rush to feed their offspring. Sometime later, they go on a tour to the center to prepare for parenting. Linda shows prospective parents the play areas where children play and answers their questions. The government no longer funds education, but the center teaches programming and logic to the little ones. In one of the rooms, children engage in creative activities, or rather, a computer does the work, and the children provide feedback. One of the parents asked about the dreams the children have, but Linda reassures him. Dreams are excluded from the fetal development program because they do not carry any useful information. One day, Elvie is in his greenhouse when he hears the capsule's signal. He feeds the baby, but then decides to communicate with it, while Rachel receives a warning about her declining productivity. Her husband is trying on the capsule holder and takes pride in his success. Now he carries the capsule with him, reading books to the baby, posing riddles, showing his plants, and falling asleep beside it. At work, he suggests to the visitors to hug a tree and experience its calming effect on the human mind. His supervisor congratulates him on the upcoming joyful event and suggests replacing the live plants in the greenhouse with holographic images, as growing real trees is too expensive, but Elvie becomes furious and rejects the proposal. At home, the family watches a movie about penguins, and the man starts crying when he learns about the dedication of the birds. Worried Rachel suggests returning the capsule to the center, as other parents do. That's when Elvie reveals that he brought the capsule to work. Rachel shares this with her colleagues. She is concerned about her husband's close interaction with the egg. However, the women encourage her to be happy about it. After all, the father is immediately bonding with the future child. Rachel continues to have strange dreams, and her pregnant friend reassures her that it's normal for expectant mothers. One day, Rachel dreams of herself with a baby bump, and she enjoys it. The woman also begins to devote all her attention to the capsule, especially after Elvie's mother sent them an old book about the benefits of parental closeness. But this starts to worry Rachel, and the couple goes to a psychoanalyst. Finding a balance is challenging because everything revolves around the child. Rachel is jealous of Elvie because he spends more time with the baby than she does. After all, she is the mother and should feel the baby. After listening to their argument, the AI asks for permission to connect to the capsule because it cannot take sides. The next day, Rachel takes the capsule to work. However, she behaves distractedly, giving the baby too much attention. Alice suggests placing the egg in a specially designated area where other future mothers' capsules are stored because Rachel is becoming a distracting mother. Alice's capsule is kept at the center because it's more convenient for her. In the evening, Rachel, taking the capsule, hurries to the center for a parenting seminar, after which Linda suggests leaving the baby in the incubation area. The family reluctantly complies with the demand. The house becomes empty, and both the husband and wife miss their capsule. One day, Rachel dreams of a seaside where she walks with the baby in her arms. She wakes up in tears and moves Elvie's little tree to the kids' room, surprising her husband. Meanwhile, at work, her boss is not entirely satisfied with her productivity, but Rachel assures her that everything is fine. Later, Linda informs them that the delivery day will be next Wednesday, as deliveries now occur on the 39th week. They can't afford babies being born earlier or later, as the capsules are in high demand. Parents must receive oxytocin, the love hormone, to prepare for the baby's arrival. However, the family shocks the director with a request to allow them to take the capsule home before delivery, even though it goes against the rules. Moreover, important personality development seminars are held every day. Linda suggests they take special tablets to regulate the baby's sleep, which greatly helps parents. The couple leaves, passing through protesting women against the capsules. Suddenly, Elvie returns and, taking advantage of the midwife being occupied with another patient, retrieves his capsule without permission. That night, Rachel dreams that she is buying her baby at a store, and they offer her a deal, 2 for the price of 1. Upon waking up, she wakes her husband and asks him to take her to their countryside home to give birth in nature. Elvie rushes to the center and informs Linda that they intend to give birth at home. However, the director is strongly against it. The capsule is very expensive and they cannot take risks, so they must return the egg as soon as possible. Nevertheless, the family leaves for their coastal home. Rachel enjoys the surrounding nature, starting to understand her husband. They walk in the forest together and plant an olive tree. They often sit by the sea with the capsule until one night it turns off. In a panic, Rachel suggests calling the center, but her husband reminds her that they still have 48 hours, and they must trust the child. They are awakened by the onset of labor, requiring a code to be entered, but they can't figure it out. So Elvie grabs a hammer. He opens the capsule and retrieves a beautiful, healthy baby. The happy parents embrace him. Early in the morning, Rachel puts the capsule in a box, takes it to the post office, and sends it back to the center. She then returns home where her husband and son are sleeping on the bed. The creators of the film portrayed the absurdity of a possible social evolution quite delicately. Nothing terrible happened. People just became so lazy that they forgot about the joys of life. Why go out of town when you can visit a capsule garden where you lie down and inhale the scents of the forest? And why go through the process of pregnancy and subject your body to stress? After all, there's the capsule. Physics professor Jason Desson's morning begins as usual. An alarm clock rings, he checks his high school son Charlie's homework and makes coffee for his beloved wife Daniela. The woman is in a hurry and grateful for the attention. However, she is adamantly against letting Charlie drive. Despite this, Jason trusts the boy with the car and they nearly have an accident. The father calms his son and suggests he confess his feelings to a girl he likes. Meanwhile, Jason receives a call from his friend, Ryan, who is eager to share some good news. He has received a very prestigious scientific award and invites Jason to celebrate that evening. Later, Jason heads to the university, where he tries to explain the essence of Schrödinger's thought experiment to his students. He draws a cat locked in a box on the board. Inside the box, there's also a vial of poison, a radioactive atom, and a Geiger counter. If the atom does not decay, the cat survives. But if it does, the Geiger counter will detect radiation, the vial will break, and the cat will die. All this illustrates the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which posits that until the box is opened, the atom is in a state of superposition, undetermined. The lecture is interrupted by a phone call, and Jason watches as the students hurriedly leave without hearing that the cat is simultaneously alive and dead. Later, Jason enters a dark room, records the day's events in his notebook, and injects himself with dark matter. The scene shifts to the family kitchen, where Jason and Daniela are preparing dinner. Charlie teases his parents for kissing too often. Then messages from Ryan, who has been waiting at the bar for a while, arrive. Daniela insists that her husband should go meet his best friend. Jason relents and heads to the bar. Ryan is delighted by his arrival and orders Daniela's favorite drink, which the bartender notes is the last bottle. Ryan introduces his colleagues to Jason and unexpectedly offers him a position in his new consciousness research lab. There's one catch: the Center for Neuropsychology will be in San Francisco, and Jason is unsure if his family will want to move from Chicago. He promises to think about it and heads home, but on a dark street he is suddenly stopped by an armed man in a mask. Jason is ready to hand over everything valuable he has, but the robber seems interested in something else. He puts Jason in the car, calling him by name, and orders him to comply. Along the way, the robber unlocks his phone, knowing the password, and asks questions about Ryan. Soon they arrive at a deserted building where the robber orders Jason to undress. He complies, but still decides to attack the assailant. However, he receives a heavy blow to the head and immediately feels an injection in his neck. The robber tells him to put on different clothes and warns that Jason is being given a new opportunity. He should remember this thought because now he will have everything he ever dreamed of, and he's doing this for both of them. When Jason asks who the robber is, he's told it's better not to know. Jason's consciousness fades. He regains consciousness in a hospital ward. He is examined and sent to a shower stall. Eventually, Jason comes to his senses in an unfamiliar bedroom. He tries to leave, but the doors are locked. Suddenly, a woman he doesn't recognize enters, behaves as if she knows him well, and introduces herself as Amanda. She informs him that his body is clean and he is no longer in quarantine. Jason doesn't understand what is happening, but no one answers his questions. The second person Jason sees is Leighton, with whom he once worked a long time ago. Leighton congratulates him on his triumph and calls him the chief scientific officer. Then, the blinds open and numerous colleagues applaud Jason, welcoming back the only one who returned. He has been absent for 14 months and 10 days, and they all want to hear about his journey. Confused, Jason begins to talk about the meeting at the bar and the strange robber, but his patience runs out because he doesn't know the people around him and doesn't understand what's happening here. Leighton announces that he must stay here overnight. However, Jason pushes him away and starts to run. He manages to reach the exit, where a security guard calls him by name and helps open the door. Jason flees the premises despite being pursued. He manages to catch a taxi, gives his address, and heads home. But upon entering, he finds his home changed beyond recognition. At the same time, in another reality, the new Jason returns from the bar and sees his upset wife Daniela. He embraces her, tells her about Ryan's offer, and reminds her of his long-ago choice to marry her, not a cold, sterile laboratory. The wife thaws and kisses her husband, unaware that this man is actually not her Jason. In another world, the first Jason meets Amanda in his home instead of his wife and son, who says they live there together. Jason does not believe this and begins to look for traces of his son, but Charlie's room looks completely different. Now it is Jason's own office, filled with awards for outstanding achievements and discoveries he has received over the years. He tries to call his wife Daniela, but the number is unavailable. Jason roams around the house trying to understand what is really happening. Meanwhile, Amanda makes a phone call, asking to handle the matter herself, but Jason sees a car with security arriving at the house and flees. In another reality, Daniela leads her husband into the bedroom and notices a wound on his arm. However, he assures her that she would not believe the truth and kisses her. Meanwhile, Jason 1 rushes to the bar he was at the night before, but the bartender refuses to recognize him, although the man calls him by name and reminds him of his favorite drink. Jason insists, but the bartender kicks him out, advising him to check his head. Then Jason goes to the hospital, where he undergoes a brain tomogram and is given sedatives. He constantly remembers Daniela and tries to find his wedding ring. At the same time, Jason 2 wakes up next to Daniela, kisses his wife, and surveys the kitchen, trying to find coffee. Simultaneously, the first Jason comes to and sees a doctor in front of him who tells him about the results of his tests. The fact is that an unknown psychoactive substance has been found in his blood, but according to all other indicators, he is completely healthy. At his request, they tried to find his family, but there is no one in Chicago with such names. The doctors also checked his file. The woman lists his achievements in science, which Jason himself does not remember, and she informs him that he had been missing for more than a year, and they would like to know where he was. Jason 1 himself checks his information and still finds Daniela, but under her maiden name. In this world, she continues to pursue painting, and her exhibition is supposed to open just today. At this time, Amanda, Leighton, and a security officer discuss the situation. The woman suggests calling the police. However, Leighton opposes the idea and the security officer suggests checking the hospital. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Jason steals a white coat and walks out into the hall where he sees the familiar security officer. He manages to avoid the encounter and leave the hospital. Jason 2 arrives at the university and, apologizing for his tardiness, continues the lecture. Jason 1 arrives at the exhibition hall. Hearing his name, the man is freely admitted inside, where he examines a modern installation. Later, he sees his own portrait among the displayed paintings and finds Daniela. He embraces her and tries to ask about Charlie, but the woman doesn't know who that is. Moreover, she is constantly being congratulated, and she introduces Jason as the inspiration for her success. Ryan arrives, very surprised by Jason's appearance, as there had been many varied rumors about his disappearance. The man is upset with Jason because he did a lot for him and Velocity. Hearing the company's name, from which he recently escaped, Jason begins to ask questions, but then Daniela starts a speech, which includes questions about unfulfilled dreams. Everyone was asking what he could have been, and advises remembering the other doors he could have entered. At the same time, in another world, Jason 2 listens to Daniela's stories about her work plans and gives advice to his son, which surprises his wife. Simultaneously, Jason 1, Ryan, and Daniela from the New World discuss plans. Jason suddenly proposes a hypothesis about a scientist, married to the woman of his dreams, who once went to a bar where he met an old friend who had received a prestigious award. But on the way back, he was attacked, and when he woke up, everything around him had changed. A brain check revealed no abnormalities, only an unknown substance was found in his body. For a practical joke, it was too elaborate, and he had not gone mad. Jason asks to explain how he inspired Daniela's creativity, and she reminds him that once he came to her and said that theoretically people exist in millions of parallel realities, and his decision to part with her was his biggest mistake in this world. Then he talked about some secret project and warned that they would not see each other again. Then Jason starts to describe their life together with their son, causing Ryan's anger and Daniela's tears. He describes his friend's achievements in his own world, but he leaves. At the same time, Jason 2 mixes up toothbrushes, causing his wife's confusion. And Jason 1 receives permission to spend the night in Daniela's guest room, and looking around he finds an elastic band, which he wraps around his ring finger, mimicking a wedding ring. Meanwhile, Jason 2 perplexes his wife with unusual tenderness and examines the photographs on the walls of the house, after which he calls Ryan and declines his offer to work in San Francisco. At this time, Jason 1 calls Amanda and tells her that he is going to the psychiatric hospital. The woman heads there, but it turns out to be a ruse that Jason used to lure her out of the house, and now he and Daniela are inspecting his home together. The man points to a photo, but in his world they are depicted as a family in it. He talks about a son who is as talented as his mother, and Daniela admits that after he left her, she got rid of the child. Jason doesn't believe this, as everything was different, but Daniela insists that in her world, that's exactly what happened. People cannot understand why their memories differ so much, but the woman starts to believe his stories. Later, he finds records of his double from this world and realizes that he made a great discovery in quantum physics. Jason number 2 created a more voluminous version of the container where a person was put into superposition and gained the ability to move between multiple realities. It turns out that his double, Jason number 2, moved to his world and sent Jason number 1 to his dimension, to this world. So Jason is one person, living in reality until the question of marrying Daniela came up. When the first Jason chose his family, the second left Daniela. Their universes split, and the second Jason gave himself to science and invented the container. They switched worlds, but why? Later, Daniela admits that she is glad he appeared, and he explains the rubber band on his hand as a desire to preserve the marriage and return to his wife. He talks about their life there, in another reality, and admits that they were happy. Daniela kisses him, but at that moment, someone knocks at the door. They go to open it, and a security officer from the company Velocity, from which Jason had escaped, bursts into the house. He asks not to use weapons, but the woman shoots Daniela, and the last thing Jason sees is her blood-covered face. This is the first 2 episodes of a new series from Apple TV titled Dark Matter. At night, Leighton informs Amanda about what happened, and she rushes to the center where Jason has been taken. Leighton, in the meantime, apologizes to the tied-up Jason. He couldn't imagine his friend was so unstable and cannot release him yet. Jason, shocked by Daniela's murder, does not want to talk about his supposed genius invention. Jason too invites Daniela 1 to a cafe. She is surprised by her husband's behavior, but likes this new Jason. Moreover, they have a dinner planned for close friends the next day, something their family hasn't done in a long time. In a parallel reality, a detective visits Leighton, surprised by yet another disappearance of an employee from their lab. Before this, Blair and a couple of junior employees also vanished. Leighton pretends to know nothing. The detective goes to Amanda. Later, Amanda expresses her displeasure. She is very upset with Don's behavior, while the boss reminds her of the millions spent. If everything comes out, the project will be shut down. They don't understand what happened to Jason, who decides to play along with the colleagues and asks for help in remembering everything. Leighton takes him to a hangar where a huge metal box stands. Jason recalls trying to create a small Schrodinger's box once, but Leighton convinces him that he managed to make a huge box that can easily fit several people. Only Jason knows how it works. The man steps inside, but there are no panels or screens. Recording devices don't work either. Jason is told about the missing people and then shown footage of him emerging from the box. Jason too takes Charlie to a store, buys him an expensive skateboard, surprising his son with generosity, and then questions him about the family friends coming to dinner tomorrow. In a parallel reality, Amanda tells Jason 1 that she works as a psychiatrist in the lab, and they have been living together for over a year. Before he disappeared, he met with his ex-girlfriend and then just vanished. Jason suddenly suggests he might not be who she thinks he is. Amanda leaves completely puzzled. Meanwhile, in the parallel reality, Jason too welcomes the guests. He keeps conversations going, displaying knowledge of everyone's lives gleaned from social networks, and talks with his son. Jason 1 tries to answer Leighton's questions, who begins to suspect him of being an imposter. The man is beaten, forced to reveal the whereabouts of their Jason, but he knows nothing and cannot explain how the container works. Leighton asks him to strain his memory, as there might be a way to reach a world where cancer is cured. However, all is in vain. Daniela thanks her husband for the wonderful evening. She hasn't seen him like this in a long time, and he seems completely changed. At the same time, in the parallel world, Ryan is thrown into Jason's room, horrified to learn of Daniela's death, as he was the one who told Leighton that Jason went to her. Ryan had created a drug for Jason that changes the chemical composition of the brain's cortex, temporarily putting some parts to sleep. Jason admits he is not the Jason Ryan knew in this world. The drug creates a special effect that, combined with the container, allows for traveling between worlds. Leighton's men take Ryan away. Meanwhile, in the parallel world, Jason too tells his wife he nearly died under the wheels, prompting him to reassess his life and express his gratitude for her presence. In the neighboring world, Amanda enters Jason's room, ordering him to follow her as she intends to get him out of there. They walk through the corridors but encounter a guard who raises the alarm. Jason and Amanda run to the container. They are chased, but Jason closes the iron door, cutting off Don's fingers. Amanda injects both herself and Jason with the drug that aids in transferring. Jason too, in the meantime, reviews family archives and finds a birth certificate of another son, Max. In an alternate world, Jason 1 and Amanda find themselves in a dark corridor with many doors. Leighton, angered by their disappearance, enters the container himself. Jason and Amanda proceed through the corridor, but all doors look the same. The man suggests the doors lead to other worlds. They step out into one and find themselves on the street of a dead city. There is ash and smoke everywhere. They look around and notice a house in front of them starting to crumble. They rush back to the container, barely making it. Coughing, Amanda shows a case with the remaining doses of the drug, 48 in total. According to the coordinates, the container stands in the same place as in her world, meaning only the external world changes. They inject themselves again and head to the next reality. Leighton also enters the corridor, searching for the pair, but without success so far. Jason too attends a lecture in place of his double, but realizing the students are uninterested, he leaves the auditorium, announcing his resignation. Jason 1 and Amanda step into another world and find themselves in a forest. They continue and enter a reality without an atmosphere after a nuclear explosion. The woman's nerves give way, but Jason explains it's a multiverse where everything that could happen did happen. They will soon need food and water, so they must find a habitable world. He opens another door, and the pair end up in the Velocity facility, witnessing Leighton and Dawn killing their doubles. Jason manages to push Amanda into the container and close the doors. Later, they open the next doors but find dead worlds everywhere. Exhausted, Amanda rushes through the first door she sees with Jason hurrying after her. They find themselves in the midst of a snowstorm. The woman loses consciousness from the cold. Jason searches for a bunker but sees a house nearby. He breaks a window, carries Amanda inside, wraps her in a blanket, and lights a fire in the fireplace. Meanwhile, Jason too visits Leighton in his world. Here too, he is rich but spends his time idly. Jason offers him to become his investor in a very unusual venture. In the snowy world, Jason 1 steps outside and sees a completely frozen city. Jason 2 takes Leighton 2 to a bunker and offers him the substance. Jason 1 returns to the house, finds a family photograph of the owners, and remembers his own family. His wife pulls out a photo of their second son, who is no longer there. Amanda, warming up, learns that the container is buried in snow and finding it is impossible. She recalls being stuck in a snowstorm. Jason suddenly realizes this might have triggered their arrival in the frozen world. Perhaps they can choose where to move. Jason too shows Leighton to the container and promises to show him the path not taken. Instantly, the corridor with doors appears before them. Amanda and Jason, armed with probes, begin searching for the container in the snowdrifts. Suddenly, Amanda realizes that the compass always points in the same direction, indicating the container's approximate location. They head that way and soon find the box. In the neighboring universe, Daniela and Charlie walk to the memorial tree. Simultaneously, Jason starts telling Amanda about his second son. Daniela recounts the same story to Charlie. Once Jason and Daniela were thrilled to learn they were expecting twins, but Max had a weak heart and died. They planted a tree, mixing their son's ashes with the soil. Every birthday, they sit under it and remember the boy. Leighton, too, meanwhile, is delighted by what he sees. Jason tells him about his life in the world where Leighton was his research partner. The tycoon agrees to fund his work. Jason 1 narrates his abduction to Amanda. He doesn't understand why his double went to such lengths. After questioning him about his life, Amanda suggests that the double simply wanted to fix Jason 1's life, making him happy while also taking what he himself lacked, a family. Daniela and Charlie discuss their father's strange behavior, but then Jason too arrives, congratulates his son on his birthday, and gives him car keys. To his stunned wife, he confesses he quit his job but assures her not to worry about money as he has returned to science and already found a sponsor. She can pursue her passion for painting. Jason 1 and Amanda experiment in front of the next door. Jason tries to set a mood, outlining the conditions for the next world. Everything should be peaceful and beautiful, but opening the door, the pair end up in water. The city is flooded. With great difficulty, they close the container door. Amanda asks him to analyze his feelings, and Jason thinks he understands the mistake, but the woman is convinced that lying won't work here. Later they rest, reminiscing about their loved ones. Amanda admits she loves special candies, but they don't exist in Jason's world. The woman reveals that the first to test the container was Engineer Blair, followed by 2 volunteers. Soon the drug's effect wears off. Amanda opens the door and the pair find themselves in the Velocity basement. Initially, they want to escape, but hunger takes over. They look around, but the cafeteria is closed and the elevator doesn't work. Amanda recalls a protocol designed for such a situation. They find a bedroom with someone lying under a blanket, but it's a shriveled body. It becomes clear that something terrible happened in this world. As they prepare to return to the container, a person with a gun stops them, but upon closer inspection, Amanda recognizes Blair. After joyful embraces, Jason tells Blair everything that happened. In his world, he knows her as his wife's friend, but there, she works as a lawyer. Blair leads them to a habitable area and offers them food. She arrived here 3 months ago when nothing worked. She managed to start the generators and access the system, discovering that Earth was overrun by creatures that devoured all living things. She went outside for food and saw the dead world. Blair also has drug vials but is not yet ready to leave. Jason, too, and Layton continue to explore the bunker. They compare their worlds, finding similarities and differences. Jason, too, explains that money varies between worlds, and carrying it is dangerous. One must be careful and honest. Blair reminds Amanda that Jason belongs to another world, so she must decide where she wants to be without considering him. Blair refuses to join them, not ready to re-enter the container. Layton, having visited the first world, is thrilled. Jason is ready to let him go, believing he has prepared him. Blair gives the pair her diary, describing the world she saw. Unfortunately, she has few vials left. Jason and Amanda leave. In the corridor, Amanda suddenly cries. Jason, too, ruined lives, knowing how to use the container. Jason, 1, consoles her. Emboldened, Layton promises Jason, 2, $1 million for the next doses of the drug. Jason, 1, decides to write in Blair's diary what he wants to see behind the next door. He thinks the method worked, and they finally arrived in his world. But stepping outside, they notice unusual emptiness. They manage to open a car and drive to his house. The door is opened by a haggard Daniela. She says Jason was taken to the hospital and the deceased, Charlie, lies in his room. The man runs outside, encountering a medical patrol. A female doctor goes inside, while another doctor performs a rapid test on Jason. The returning doctor says hospitals are full, and Daniela is better off dying at home. The end is near. The virus spreads through body fluids, so Jason should avoid touching Daniela. She gives him several morphine injections, advising him to ease his wife's passing. Amanda tries to keep him from entering the house, reminding him that this is not his world and not his wife. But Jason returns. They reminisce about good moments that turn out to be very similar in both worlds. Then the woman takes the syringe. Jason and Amanda return to the container. The woman reminds him that they were talking about Jason's mother's illness. That's why they ended up in a world dying from a pandemic. The pair continues on. They arrive in a world that, at first glance, doesn't differ from Jason's. Meanwhile, Jason, too, apologizes to his wife for the unilateral decision to buy their son a car. The woman points out that such things are becoming more frequent. Her husband seems to be distancing from her, even missing the gathering at the tree. He tells her about Layton, who will pay huge sums for his discoveries. Jason enters his house, but upon hearing voices upstairs, he grabs a knife from the kitchen. Daniela screams in fear upon seeing him, and Charlie rushes into the room. They both act as if they are mortally afraid of Jason. The woman grabs the phone and tells emergency services that her arrested husband has come to her with a knife. Charlie shouts at him to leave. Frightened, Jason exits the house as a siren sounds in the distance. Amanda takes him to her friend, but the friend is horrified. In this world, Amanda is dead, and the friend mourns her deeply. Amanda tells her that she is in a better world and then takes the car keys. They drive to the container. In Jason 2's world, the container opens, and he steps out, retrieving backpacks with drugs. A lab assistant who rushes out tells him about his double's appearance and his escape with Amanda. Jason 2 returns to the corridor, where he hands doses to Layton. He then informs him that he will have to seal this world. Daniela from Jason's original world starts painting, and her husband's double is thrilled, suggesting she leave the gallery and focus solely on painting, especially since the deal with Layton is sealed. Later, he picks up their son and treats him to ice cream with nuts, not knowing the boy is allergic to them. Daniela can't understand how he could forget such a thing. Then she notices injection marks on his arms. In the evening, he uses dental floss, something he has never done, and Daniela becomes increasingly puzzled. Jason 1 and Amanda continue searching for his world, but they keep finding discrepancies. A different door color, a dog's presence, the absence of the memory tree, and similar things. Amanda suggests they rest at a hotel and have dinner at a normal cafe. Over the meal, they laugh a lot and then dance. At night, Jason hugs Amanda but stops, realizing they are not together. Jason, too, visits a psychotherapist who turns out to be Amanda's double. He talks about his relationship with Daniela and the disappointments he has faced. She suddenly reminds him that expectations can be overly high. Daniela complains to her friend Blair about his strange changes, and Blair advises her to keep an eye on her husband. In the evening, Jason asks his wife to wear a new dress and takes her to the gallery where he has hung her painting. Instead of gratitude, Daniela is horrified and asks to be taken home. She is very angry about his unilateral action, which she feels has humiliated her. Jason admits he never really knew her and is trying to make her happy against her wishes. Leaving his wife at home, he drives away, unaware that she is following him. Soon, they arrive at a warehouse where Daniela sees a locker her husband uses. Waiting for him to leave, she takes out a couple of vials lying on the floor. Later, she gives one to Ryan, asking him to analyze the drug. Meanwhile, Jason 1 finds the Daniela of this world. She also runs a gallery but doesn't recognize him during their conversation. Amanda also finds her double, but here the woman is married and has a son. At night, Jason goes to his house and watches his wife embrace his copy. Amanda, in the meantime, describes her ideal world. When Jason returns, a quarrel ensues because Amanda loses faith that they will find his world, as they only have 10 vials left. Ryan accuses Jason 2 of stealing his research, as the drug in his vial is identical to his own. Jason 2 takes his friend to the container. He injects the drug into himself and Ryan ends up in the corridor with doors to other worlds. Realizing he is in a quantum state, he is thrilled. Jason explains how to tune into another reality, and upon opening a door, Ryan sees a fantastically beautiful Chicago. This world is kinder and more progressive because Jason made it so for his friend. He asks for Ryan's phone to take a picture of him and steps back to the door. Ryan realizes this is not his friend. Jason just closes the door, leaving the man in another world. Later, he sees that Daniela is calling Ryan. Then Layton's men arrive and pack up the container. Sometime later, a detective comes to Jason's house, investigating Ryan's disappearance. The couple tells her about their last encounters with the friend, and Jason 2 suddenly states that Ryan drank a lot, although he never drank alcohol. After this, Daniela shows him the remaining vial and confesses she has been following him. He explains that Ryan made the drug for Jason 2's research because he is reviving his project. Amanda leads Jason 1 into a world she has imagined. This Chicago is beautiful. They walk through a clean and cozy city, enjoying friendly faces. They drink cocoa from edible cups and then have a snack in a cafe where they learn about a trendy restaurant in the tallest tower in the city. Amanda leaves, setting up a meeting with Jason there. A nearby couple gives him a photo they took, admiring them. Later, Jason goes to the restaurant and sees Amanda in an evening dress. She gives him a suit she bought for him, and he changes and joins her. Jason gives her her favorite candies, which exist in this world. She laughs, saying he is an insurance agent here. Her double in this world disappeared 2 years ago. Taking advantage of their identical appearance, Amanda made a passport and gained access to the double's savings, so she decided to stay here. She invites Jason to join her, but he declines. Before leaving, Jason secretly places 2 of the remaining vials in her purse. Amanda cries in the elevator, but, seeing the sun, wipes her tears and heads into a new life. Jason goes to the container. He has only 3 vials left, and the next world is destroyed. He continues, and in the next reality, he calls his wife. She is surprised, as she just saw him off to work, but Jason confesses his love to her. At night, he sneaks into his house and sees Daniela hugging his copy, but going down to the kitchen, he encounters his son, and it is not Charlie. It turns out that here they managed to save Max by transplanting the heart of a deceased girl, and now he suffers from guilt. Jason 1 comforts him. Meanwhile, Jason 2 confesses to the psychotherapist Amanda that he wants to pack up and leave his wife. Then suddenly he tells very personal things about the doctor herself. She kicks him out, but outside, Jason 2 is met by a detective. They tracked Ryan's phone and know that after the bar, he went to the industrial part of the city, so she intends to check all the cameras located there. Jason 2 goes to the container and breaks the formwork. He finds Ryan's double in the first world, where he works as a simple mechanic, gets him drunk, brings him to his world, cleans him up, and puts him to sleep in Ryan's bed. Jason 1 takes out the last vial and writes in Blair's diary his memories of the first meeting with Daniela. He saw the living Max and even thought of treating his double in that world as he had been treated. But he realized he only wants his family, his home, and his life. Jason 1 opens the door and finally arrives in his world. He heads home, checking all the details along the way, but upon approaching the house, he sees himself telling Daniela that he found Ryan in a wild drunken state. He had to clean his friend up and take him home. Jason 1 goes to a store to buy a gun, but without a permit, he buys pepper spray and a hunting knife. A minute later, Jason 2 enters the same store and repeats his double's actions. The stunned shop assistant remarks that they were just discussing buying a gun. She asks if he has a twin brother. Realizing his prototype has returned, Jason 2 runs outside but finds no one. Friends, if you've watched this far, pay closer attention because the most confusing part of the plot is about to begin. He returns home where Charlie informs him that Mom went to Ryan, who is behaving very strangely. Jason 2 goes outside and is attacked by another Jason in a hat, whom he kills in a fight. Meanwhile, Ryan, seeing Daniela, claims that he is an auto mechanic and repairs her car in his world, not a scientist-chemist. He recalls a man offering him alcohol and recognizes Jason from a photo. Jason checks his gear and, stepping into the hallway, encounters himself, but the double runs away, and Jason gives chase. At this time, Jason 2 loads the body of the killed double into a car, and Jason 1 catches up with his double in a bar. They realize that their copies multiply in a container, and it's unclear how many there could be, but they all aimed for this particular Chicago, as their prototype was desperate to get home. Amanda appeared in all realities. Only in one did she die in a terrible world. And for Jason 1, she remained in the best world. Both are out of vials and cannot help each other. Jason 3 suggests getting rid of the one who caused all this. Jason 2 doesn't know about the place where they both love to rest. They need to lure the villain there and kill him. Besides, Jason 3 has already dug a grave there, and he also has a gun. The next morning, Jason 1 goes to the bar, where he lights a cigar despite the strict prohibition. He is taken to the police station. Meanwhile, Daniela plans to take her husband's large car to move some things to the gallery, but he rudely forbids her, and Jason 2 drives his son to the university, showing him memorable places on the campus when he notices Jason 3 watching them. Daniela goes to the storage box again and, breaking the doors, finds bags with unknown currency, a box of vials, and Ryan's jacket. But then she gets a call from the police. Jason 2 guides Charlie through the building, and their pursuer loses sight of them. The father asks his son to take the car and meet him at another exit, even though he doesn't have a license yet. Confused, Charlie leaves, and Jason 2 tries to throw Jason 3 off his trail, but he also knows the university building well. Eventually, the men engage in a fight, and the second Jason wins. Charlie makes a failed maneuver, attracting a policeman's attention, and Jason 2 knocks out the third and locks him in a toilet stall. Meanwhile, the policeman demands Charlie's license, but at that moment, Jason 2 appears, managing to persuade the officer to let them go. At this moment, Daniela sees her husband at the station. It turns out Jason was looking for a place where they could talk safely. He tells his wife the truth, but she doesn't believe him. Then Jason suggests calling him. Daniela dials her husband's number, and Jason answers. She hangs up, then Jason asks her to call again and remind him of their great vacation in Miami, though they never actually went there. Daniela does this, adding made-up details about the vacation, and that Jason agrees, pretending to remember the trip. Now Daniela believes her real husband, who says there are other versions of him. They agree on a code word in a meeting place, and Daniela goes to get their son. But at home she finds her husband, Jason 2, who orders her to pack because they need to leave urgently. The mother tries to talk to her son, but Jason 2 is on guard and doesn't let them do it. The woman leaves supposedly to get a suitcase and messages Charlie. The boy leaves first, and Daniela lures her husband into the basement and pushes him down the stairs. They drive away, but another car with yet another Jason behind the wheel cuts them off. Daniela realizes this is another version of her husband. At this moment, they are rammed by a car driven by yet another Jason. Daniela and Charlie flee. Soon they reach the place where Jason 1 is waiting for them. He says the code word and hugs his son. Meanwhile, Jason's family leaves the city. Suddenly, Daniela and Charlie start receiving messages from numerous other Jasons, assuring them that only they can protect them. The woman turns off the gadgets. Her husband can't choose a place where they can hide, as the other Jasons might also guess where to look for them. Then Charlie takes over and shows the way to a friend's vacant house. Charlie is puzzled by the number of fathers, as, theoretically, they all are his father in some way. Jason suggests they sleep first and then make decisions. Daniela sympathizes with his adventures, but those other Jasons are suffering too. The woman goes to bed, while Jason checks his email and suddenly sees an entire chat of 44 Jasons arguing over who gets Daniela and Charlie. In the morning, Jason finds his wife on the beach. She admits that at first, she liked the new Jason, but gradually she realized he wasn't the one she loved. Her husband tells her he sometimes thought about a new life. Apparently Jason 2 also thought about this, so he moved to their world. He recalls Daniela number 2, who became an artist, lived in a luxurious apartment, and had lots of friends. Jason 3 also studies the chat, trying to figure out where his double went. Suddenly, he gets a message from Blair asking to return the car. He realizes Daniela borrowed a car from a friend and asks her to come urgently. At this time, Jason tells his wife about the chat, and one of them suggesting to raffle her and Charlie in a lottery. Jason 2 questions the third about what happened to him in other worlds. He tells about the death of Daniela and Ryan and the suffering of Amanda, who loved that Jason very much. In the reality of the third Jason, she died in the forest, impaled by a giant tree branch. Jason 2 begins to understand the horror of his actions, as he hoped to make his double happy with a new life. Meanwhile, Charlie prepares breakfast and tells Jason the latest news from their life, deciding where to go next. At this time, Blair arrives at their house and finds Jason 3 tied up in a closet. The third attacks her and demands to track her car, but Blair manages to neutralize him and demands to tell her the truth about the ongoing madness. Jason tells his wife and son about other realities. They are amazed that their doubles live in a few microns away, unseen by them. Jason admits that there was one world where he almost stayed but couldn't imagine life without his family. Later, Daniela reads his chat. They spend the night together, reminiscing about their first meeting. She admits she made a choice and informed the other Jasons. But later, Jason suddenly sees a shadow outside the window, and going outside, finds an injured double, who says he was hit by one of them. There are many of them here, and it won't end just like that. Gunshots are heard in the dark, and Jason asks his wife to run to their son, but then another armed double calls out to him, demanding his clothes and the code word. Jason 1 charges at him. A fight ensues, but a shot rings out, and the double falls. It turns out to be Jason 2, who realized his guilt. He asks for their forgiveness, gives them car keys, and asks them to leave. The family drives into the night, while the second Jason shoots back at the other doubles, giving them a chance to escape. Here they find a suitcase with a device for traveling between worlds in the car, and a phone with a recorded message, in which Jason 2 admits that he entered the container full of regret about the world where the family he didn't create lived, and now he offers to find them a new home in another world. The family heads to the container, where they are met by dozens of Jason doubles who understood that the woman made a choice and came to say goodbye. The family walks into the container through the line of Jasons. There, they trust Charlie to choose a new world where they will all be happy. Charlie opens the door and steps into another reality, followed by his parents. This concludes the first season. Hello everyone, today we'll be talking about a monster action film called Monster Truck. Be ready for some spoilers ahead. Somewhere in the wilderness of United States, a mining company called Terravax is trying to take out the oil that's underneath the entire area. The company owner, Tennyson, has come to the mining facility personally after receiving news from their head biologist, Jim, that their operation has run into some problems. Apparently, they encountered a large water deposit that's blocking their drills, which can possibly be harboring life. But Tennyson gives the order to go through the liquids anyways. However, when their cameras penetrate into the large reservoir, they quickly discover moving organisms inside the area, and the water begins to burst out from the immense pressure. The liquids rush out from the pumps and destroys all the equipment on site, while spitting out large creatures that crash lands onto the ground. The people are shocked to see the mysterious life forms and quickly try to capture them right away. They put the creatures into large containers, but their head of security, Mr. Bird, tells them that one of the animals is still missing. Tennyson wants the monster to be found immediately, as he doesn't want the entire operation to be shut down by the government due to the foreign creatures. The next day, while working on the new engine for his truck, a young man whose name is Coley hears a strange noise from the outside and decides to take a look in the junkyard. He walks into the piles of cars and sees the oil containers broken open. Suddenly, all the buckets are knocked over, causing the man to run away in fear as he rushes inside the garage and tries desperately to close the doors. He goes into the crawlspace to hide, but begins hearing a giant creature that's moving on top and sees a massive tentacle sliding inside the metal gates. Coley tries desperately to escape, not wanting to become a victim like the girls in those Japanese movies. He eventually manages to open the hatches and escapes outside, but not before locking the metal doors and preventing the monster from getting away. The man calls the police right away and notifies them about the creature that he saw, but when the officers opened the hatches, there was nothing inside except for the empty oil container. The senior officer, Rick, tells his friends to wait outside and begins scolding the young man immediately for what appears to be a prank. It turns out that the sheriff is actually the stepfather of Coley, and he thinks that this is nothing more than the boy's way of rebelling against him. After the man leaves in anger, the main character realizes that something is odd, as the monster only seems to be attracted to places that has oil. The next day, Coley takes a bunch of oil containers and places them inside the car crusher, while purposely spilling them onto the machine so that the monster would be lured here. He takes the controller and waits by the side, hoping that the creature would take the bait. Very soon, a bunch of tentacles appear behind the car crusher, and a giant creature crawls onto the platform. The monster grabs onto the oil container as it lies down like Winnie the Pooh, and Coley is surprised to see that the creature seems to be very harmless. The man goes closer towards the animal as it drinks all the oil like it was made from honey, and not noticing the human's presence at all. Coley watches the creature intriguingly, but the monster is frightened by his sudden appearance, causing the man to break the controller and turning on the machine as a result. Coley tries to fix the remote, but nothing seems to be responding as the car crusher begins to drop onto the unsuspecting creature. With no other choice, the man runs towards the monster and begins pulling its giant tentacle while trying to save the innocent animal. The machine continues to crush down into the creature, but Coley manages to pull out the giant monster just in time before it gets turned into a massive pancake. The monster looks at the human in anger and grabs onto Coley before roaring furiously at the man, but quickly notices what happened to all the containers and realizes that it was saved. The man runs away from the monster right away as the creature lies back down like a couch potato, and Coley realizes that it's barely able to move on land. He yells at the giant squid to not eat him, which the creature seems to understand, before he grabs the oil container and begins feeding the monster to gain its trust. On the other side, Tennyson's henchmen have arrived inside the police station to inquire about any strange calls. Despite the sheriff telling his men to not say anything, one of the officers reveals that a prank call regarding a large animal came from the junkyard that Coley works in. At the same time, the main character puts the giant creature onto a large dolly so that he can drag it to the police station to prove his innocence. However, when he comes back with the truck, the monster is already gone as it uses the dolly like a wheelchair while chasing after the dog. Coley runs towards the creature and tries to stop it by dragging on the rope, but the monster notices this and easily throws the main character away like a rag doll. The man gets up and tries to stop the giant squid, but the creature is already gone as it begins to head towards the garage. Coley chases after the monster right away, but suddenly, a bright light shines towards him from behind as two large vehicles arrive into the junkyard. It turns out that Burke has decided to pay Coley a visit, demanding to know what the main character saw last night. The man lies about the encounter to protect the creature, but Tennyson's henchmen forces themselves into the garage. Luckily, the monster seems to be nowhere in sight, but Coley quickly realizes that the creature is hiding inside his truck. He tries desperately to hide the animal's tentacles while distracting Burke and his man, claiming that he heard a noise coming from the opposite side of the junkyard. His plan quickly backfires when the monster begins moving the truck towards the people, while Coley tries to stop the vehicle right away. Luckily, he's able to fool the people by pretending to push the car and manages to get away from the garage without being suspicious. His problems are not over yet, as the monster does not seem to listen to him no matter what he says, which forces the man to faceplant right onto the ground. Things become even worse when his friend Meredith comes to visit him for a study session, and he realizes that it's too late to pretend to do push-ups to save his dignity. He tries to make the woman leave, but this only angers her as she came all the way here to study for his convenience. Their arguments are interrupted by the roar of the monster, which immediately alerts the henchmen to their location. With no other choice, Cody decides to push the girl into his truck and pray that the creature would start the vehicle and run it without killing them both. Luckily, the monster begins moving the truck away from the people, while the man holds onto the steering wheel like his life depends on it. Things quickly go wrong when their vehicle jumps off the road and bounces on the hills, as the monster is having the time of his life and giving the riders a near-death experience. The creature is able to dodge all the trees while jumping over the ground and waving his tentacles, eventually making it towards the grass field in one piece. The man rushes out immediately and screams at the vehicle in anger, which only manages to confuse the woman even more. Cody realizes how bizarre it is to explain what's going on and decides to show the woman by telling her to look under the car. Meredith peeks inside the vehicle and sees the monster, causing her to fall down while screaming in fear and managing to scare the creature at the same time. The woman has a hard time believing what she just witnessed, but Cody assures her that the animal is harmless. The man brings the girl back to her home alongside the monster, which refuses to leave the truck. With no other choice, Cody decides to take out the giant squid by force, as the creature never seems to behave while inside the vehicle. However, the man quickly discovers that the animal actually stops moving when it can't see what's in front of it, which gives him a bold idea of doing something completely different. He begins modifying the truck by considering the creature inside and designs the blinds for the monster so that he may control the speed. As he continues to work on the vehicle, he discovers the mechanism to which the animal is using to turn the axle and decides to use it as a way to power the entire truck. The next morning, the girl goes into the barn and is surprised to see that Cody has kept the creature inside his ride, even naming the monster Creech. The man enters the truck to go for a test drive, and the monster begins running the vehicle like a real engine as it races down the hills, but also adding a flavor of personality as well. However, the girl thinks that they shouldn't keep the creature forever, as the animal must be missing its home by now. Cody has a hard time believing this as he takes numerous selfies alongside his new friend, but eventually agrees that they have a responsibility of returning the animal home. The man decides to bring the creature towards his biological father, who turns out to be one of the miners working for Terravax. They go towards the gas station to fill up, but Cody has trouble figuring out where the petroleum goes as he doesn't want to put it in the wrong hole. Things become even worse when Cody's rich classmate drives in as well, and the man mocks the main character for having such a broken truck. Their attitude changes quickly when they hear the revving from the main character's vehicle as it charges onto the road like a sports car. However, Cody feels that something is wrong as Creech begins driving chaotically across the traffic like a preschooler who ate too much sugar. Meredith quickly realizes that it must be due to the gasoline that Cody gave to the monster, which contains a ton of chemicals inside. They rush across the highway like a maniac and cuts across the traffic while running into other cars. The squid monster tries to take over the vehicle by using its giant tentacles, which makes the girl extremely nervous as she begins breathing like she's having childbirth. The vehicle rushes into a second-hand dealership where the salesman is trying to scam the elderly, but gets a moment of instant karma as their truck runs over all the cars. They crash into a van that's filled by paint while turning the salesman into a clown, and they're able to disappear before the police officers arrive. The two makes it towards the mining site of Terravax, and Cody goes to greet his dad, who he hasn't seen for a long time. The man takes them into his trailer while explaining to them exactly what he saw on the night, and Cody realizes that Creech must have came from underground. Before the man can tell his father about the creature, he quickly finds out that his old man has betrayed them to the company by calling the security. The conflict immediately becomes physical when Burke tries to take away the main character by force, but this greatly angers the squid monster as it begins revving the truck. Cody takes the chance to break free and tells the girl to get onto the vehicle, while Creech begins spinning the truck across the field. Burke realizes that the monster is hiding inside the automobile, as all his men are trying to grab onto the vehicle. Cody manages to get back onto the truck, and he decides to go straight towards his father's trailer as he rips the building into pieces. They head towards the exit right away, but not before running into the sheriff, who is shocked to see his stepson creating trouble once again as all the security chases after them. Cody rushes towards the downtown streets while Burke and his team follow closely behind, and the man decides to lose the pursuers by going inside a small alleyway. He manages to jump over the obstacles by using his new contraptions, causing Burke to crash into a garbage bin as they rush off towards the exit. Before they can escape the area, Cody quickly runs into his stepfather, who begins pursuing him as well. The man has no choice but to run away once again as he drives inside a small street, but when the officer arrives inside, he's surprised to see that his stepson has disappeared already. What he doesn't realize is that Cody is hiding above his car by climbing the walls like Jackie Chan and managing to trick the man into leaving the area. However, the chase is not over yet, as they're quickly discovered by Burke once again, forcing them to run into a dead end as the man pursues them closely behind. Luckily, Cody is able to use the truck's upgrades, which opens up the sides, allowing the giant monster to climb onto the building, while Burke looks at them in disbelief. They begin to drive across the roof and jumping over the windows while completely ignoring the laws of physics at the same time. The two eventually makes it back down onto the roads as Cody tries desperately to get away, but only to find out that the enemies are right behind them. The main character rushes towards the nearest train track while the massive train is approaching the intersection, as he plans to lose the pursuers like he was in Fast and Furious. He rushes towards the railway like he was Dom Toretto while living his life a quarter mile at a time, and he manages to jump over the train's cargo as he lands on the other side. Cody celebrates his victory by doing donuts on the road and leaving all the people behind in the dust. They make it towards a cabin that belongs to the girl's father and decides to use the location as a safe house for now, while Cody thanks the creature for saving his life. At night, while relaxing by the campfire, the main character talks about his disappointment in his father. The girl assures him that this is okay, as he wouldn't be the awesome person that he is today if his father wasn't so awful. Cody smiles at the girl for the comforting words while he goes inside the truck to cry alone. Surprisingly, the giant monster tries to comfort the man by using its tentacles and proceeds to drive him towards the lake before jumping into the water. Cody is shocked to see that the creature is glowing brightly while swimming inside the lake, and he thanks Creech for helping him this whole time while promising to bring the monster home. At the same time, Jim is beginning to experiment on the creatures that he captured and shows Tennyson that the animals are very intelligent as they can learn like a hive mind. However, the man is not interested in this as he only cares about his profits in the mining operation. He plans to put poison into the underground water system to kill all the monsters and blackmails the scientists to be part of this operation. The creature seems to understand that their life is in danger and begins to cry out for help, and this causes Creech to pick up on their location as it starts hearing their voices. The next morning, Cody notices that the monster has disappeared alongside his truck and wonders why the creature decided to run away. Luckily, the main character left his phone in the vehicle, and the girl is able to track the monster's location by using her mobile device. They chase after the truck immediately and is shocked to see that Creech has decided to go to the headquarters of Terravax. The two sneaks into the back door and sees that the truck is in the yard, but the monster is nowhere inside. They decide to go into the building and eventually makes it towards the basement, where they enter into a laboratory and sees two giant containers with tentacle monsters inside. Suddenly, they begin hearing something knocking from the outside wall and realizes that Creech is trying to break in to save his friends. However, this quickly alerts the security guards and they charge inside to shoot the monster with tranquilizers, eventually managing to knock out the creature as it falls towards the ground. Cody looks hopelessly at the monster as he's taken away by the guards, and they finally meet Tennyson in the office, who forcefully deletes all their photos of the creature. The man threatens the main character to leave this alone before telling his security guard to take the students away. As they're about to leave the building, their escort is interrupted by Jim, who takes them away on the pretense of Tennyson's order. The scientist tells them in secret that he won't allow his boss to kill the entire species for the man's greed, and promises that he'll do everything to help their cause. Realizing that they need more vehicles to rescue the monsters, Cody secretly goes towards his classmate's home and takes the truck while the man is too busy playing video games. The girlfriend sees this and walks towards the window, but makes no effort to warn her boyfriend, clearly showing that money will never buy true love. However, the people still need another truck for the other monster, and Cody decides to pay his friend Sam a visit. It turns out that the boy's father owns a large car dealership, and he's more than happy to help the main character after learning about the monsters. Cody takes one of their best-looking trucks and begins modifying the vehicle for the creatures, and by all working together, they're finally able to finish the upgrades by morning. At the same time, Jim watches carefully as the workers load the monsters onto the semi-truck, and the man takes the chance to hijack the vehicle away from the driver. The scientist brings the creatures inside the car dealership, and they're finally able to release the squid monsters from the plastic containers. Cody is exhilarated to see his friend once again, and Creech goes towards the other tentacle monsters and embraces them in happiness. It turns out that the creatures are actually a family that was separated due to the mining operation, and the people are glad to see that the monsters are reunited. Very soon, the giant creatures go into their trucks as the people plan to bring the tentacle monsters back to their home. They head towards the mining site by going off-road, but Burke and his men are quickly able to find their location and catch up towards their trucks. The enemies begin surrounding the people and trying to box them in while shooting at Jim's vehicle. Luckily, the girl is able to interfere by pushing her friend away and grabbing onto the enemy trucks while flipping them into the air, which disables the shooters right away. Cody realizes that they can't outrun the pursuers on the empty fields and begins luring the enemies into a dense forest. They're able to dodge the incoming obstacles thanks to the monsters and jumping over the trees by using their springs. Meanwhile, the sheriff has received news about the pursuing trucks and decides to go there immediately. The man rushes towards the area only to see that his stepson is being chased by Tennyson's henchmen once again, forcing the officer to rush onto the hills and try to stop this chaos. However, the man quickly crashes into Burke and severely damaging his vehicle. The enemy takes the chance and begins pushing the police car towards the cliff, eventually causing Rick to fall down into the ditches. This completely destroys the officer's vehicle and forcing him to continue on foot. On the other side, the enemies pursue closely behind the monster trucks, and Burke manages to push Cody off balance, which causes the men to dangle off the giant cliff. Luckily, Creech is able to save the main character in the last moment and recovers the vehicle back onto the road. They continue towards the mining site and quickly sees a chemical truck in front of them, making Jim realize that those must be the poison meant for killing the entire species. The team begins chasing the giant truck, but are forced to stop immediately as they run into a trap that's set up by the enemies. This corners the people with nowhere to run, as the monsters have a great fear of burning due to their petroleum-based diet. Before they can figure out what to do next, a massive mining vehicle rushes towards the area while pushing over the enemy trucks and making the people run for their lives. It turns out that Rick decided to help Coley after all, as he lowers the back of the giant truck and clearing the way for the group. The people sees this and quickly rushes onto the platform and jumps into the air as they eventually crash lands onto the cliffs. Surprisingly, the monsters are able to stabilize the vehicles while rushing down the mountain and bouncing off the rocks. They are eventually able to make it to the bottom in one piece, and they quickly catch up towards the chemical truck from behind. Cody takes the chance and charges onto the giant vehicle as he flips the entire truck onto its side. However, they quickly notice that a second truck has already arrived as the people are getting ready to release the poison. They charge towards the pumps immediately, but Cody is quickly knocked over by Burke, who refuses to let the monsters go. This allows Jim to rush towards the machines alongside Meredith and managing to chase all the workers away. They go out immediately to shut down the pumps, but quickly realizes that it's too late, as the pressure does not seem to be going down no matter what they try to do. At the same time, Creech manages to slowly flip the truck over like a giant turtle and charges directly towards the enemy, but is quickly overpowered by the opponents. Bert pushes the main character towards the cliff as the monster tries desperately to fight back, eventually going on top of the enemy's truck as it tries to run over the vehicle. However, they're quickly forced back once again as Cody tells the creature to leave, but Creech refuses to give up as it grabs onto Burke's truck and throws it into the air. The vehicle flies towards the giant pumps and crashes right onto the machines, causing all the pressure to be released and giving the man a taste of his own medicine. The girl notices that Cody is in trouble, but before she can do anything, the man falls into the giant hole and lands inside the underground water. Luckily, Cody is rescued by the squid monster as it brings the man onto shore alongside his broken truck. It's quickly revealed that there are many more creatures living inside the water system, and they came to thank the main character for saving their lives. Cody says goodbye to his monster friend as the creature begins swimming away, eventually disappearing into the water and finally rejoining its family inside their home. Sometimes later, the entire mine is shut off by the conservations, and Tennyson is finally arrested by the police. Cody manages to fix the truck alongside his stepfather, and the man drives the vehicle with his girlfriend as they slowly enter into the sunset. So what do you guys think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like my videos, please press like and subscribe for more. I'll see you guys next time.